You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes Live. I'm Robyn Leon, and that's Carl Pavlik right beside me. We are discussing Arizona Coyotes in the NHL Draft Lottery. The results are in. Carl, Arizona Coyotes, yet again, get put at the third pick in the draft.
Yeah, for I don't know how many times the Coyotes have lost it and have been lapped, this time by the New Jersey Devils, who took the second spot, meaning, it was saying that the Coyotes absolutely need to finish dead last. Correct. I don't know how much good that does you, but you are absolutely correct. The team that finished last gets first overall.
Yeah, it was almost like a storybook thing that was supposed to happen. Montreal, the host city for the draft, finishes dead last and able to get the first overall pick. I think what did the ESPN say, that the host city has not picked first overall since 1985. And they're obviously Montreal's the first team now to do it since then. So congratulations to the Montreal Canadiens. You know, they went from a Stanley Cup team to dead last and first overall pick. I don't know any other team that's ever done that before, but sure.
Yeah. Congrats, Montreal. Let me tip my glass of whiskey to you, which I got just in case. I also got champagne in case things were better. You went from being a cup contender to the worst team in the NHL, and you got the first overall pick. That's a fun thing, I guess. Sure, why not?
Why not?
Because that's what we needed. Shane Wright in Montreal. Whatever.
I guess so. But, a lot of people have been talking about this, that there are some people who are going through the conversation, oh, it's Shane Wright or bust. Let's be real here. It's not that. The Arizona Coyotes can easily go with any of the next four guys on the list and be fine. I mean, obviously you're not getting Shane Wright, but you're still getting a really solid potential NHL superstar on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've said from the very beginning, this is a very deep draft. So the Coyotes are missing out on a specific player. They would have been better with that player, but they're still going to get a very good player.
There was even a lot of conversation that obviously Shane Wright was the consensus number one, but the rest of it going, let's say, number 2 through 9 on some lists were all so scattered around because you don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty, but also all those players 2 through 9 are also pretty solid.
Yeah. And I do remember one thing I saw was people suggesting hey, is it going to be Wright, or is, this player who's number 2 kind of stepped up and moved in? These players all had phenomenal seasons. I don't know how many of them are really surprises, come from behind first, but this is kind of oh, these are 5 players who all seem like they are going to be especially good NHL players. We have one who's going to be the best, but we have a couple others who are good.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be in there. And it's going to be a pretty good one. Let's go ahead and talk about some of these picks. And of course, at 3, there's not much to know about it, but again, you can do a lot of these picks. And I will say the prospect rankings 2 through 5 are, and I'll name them in order, and we can go into them a little bit. So we have Logan Cooley, a center forward from the U.S. national development team. You have Juraj Slafkovsky, a winger from from over in Europe, played for for Slovakia in the Olympics. You had Simon Nemec also, who played for Slovakia in the Olympics. And you have Winnipeg Ice player from the WHL, Matthew Savoy. So those are your top 5 players. I mean, your 2 through 5. Arizona Coyotes very well could pick any of these.
Yeah. Let's give a real big shout out to Slovakia. Like 2 phenomenal, like top 5 prospects. That's pretty cool for a nation that, is represented in hockey, but not especially well, at least not at the NHL level. It's not a nation that you see represented a lot, but a few big name players. So kudos to their national development program. And I will continue to sing the praises of the U.S. national development program. Again, turning out a phenomenal prospect, as they've done with, let's be honest, former or Coyote player Clayton Keller.
Yeah, it's if a trend continues, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome to see. Again, these 4 players, a lot of them have a lot of their upsides, a lot of them have downsides. Let me be straight with everybody to start off before we go in, try to at least go a little more in depth with some of these players. None of these players, should they get drafted by the Coyotes, will be ready to play from day one. They will at least have 1 year off in their respective back in their leagues. Like I know Logan Cooley, for example, will go to play for the NCAA. That's just how it's going to be, and that's okay because the Coyotes are still rebuilding.
Yeah, and I mean, this was, I think, a conversation that we may have touched on when the Coyotes were doing really well, because that's when it kind of started to come up. Like, what is a realistic expectation for next year? And one of the things I was thinking, and I'm not sure if we talked about this on an episode, was like, if they get Shane Wright at maybe bottom 7, if they don't, then probably, bottom 3, bottom 4 again. And that works really well for prospects like this. And the Coyotes are going to get another chance at number 1 overall, likely, just, the way that it works out. I'm sorry if that's a surprise, but that's also kind of just keeping on track for this team as a rebuild. A generational talent does not immediately turn things around. As we've talked about a lot when discussing the draft lottery, look at the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, Edmonton has they've their luck is, I don't understand it. It's like, how did they manage to get there?
Yeah, and it also not great, because as lucky as the Edmonton Oilers have been at the draft lottery, they haven't become like a dominant team. Let's see what they do this year, but this is like the first time in a long time that they have looked even remotely good. So yeah, the draft is definitely something, but drafting a generational talent does not immediately turn a franchise around. I'm sorry if anyone thought that. I'm sorry if we misled anyone into thinking that.
I mean, the fact that we can get a top 5 pick now, and then have that focus on getting Connor Bedard next year.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I can buy into that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the team does next year and what the team is, because I still think we're going to be getting a lot of moves from Bill Armstrong. He is the master of moves, and more moves need to be done. But I do not know what those moves are going to be. I do not know what the Arizona Coyotes are going to look like next year, which is something that the draft lottery has not changed.
But Bill Armstrong is bargain Bill for a reason. He'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
You'll absolutely figure it out. Anyways, though, we still got more to get to on this episode of Locked On Coyotes, this live show, as we discuss the Coyotes draw, once again, 3rd overall pick in the upcoming draft based off the lottery results. We're going to get to some prospect talk and even a little bit more of the Coyotes' future in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you guys this episode brought to you by Rock Auto. With the summer coming up here in Arizona, let's be frank, it's car repair season. You want to make sure your car is in tip-top shape so you don't have to worry about any breakdowns in triple digit heat. I know because that's happened to me. My car has broken down in 118-degree weather, and I hate it. But that's why you can turn to rockauto.com, because all you got to do is stay in the cool, air conditioned home, look on your own computer, find the reliably low prices. Again, you can save a hell of a lot of money on their website. And it's a family owned business. So you're doing a lot of awesome things by just checking out rockauto.com. And if they just have so many things that fit almost every single car and truck out there, and go ahead and check it out yourself. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And while you're there, be sure to tell them that Locked On sent you. Amazing prices, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So let's now move on to talking a little bit of prospects, Carl. Let's talk about a couple, just kind of go a little bit of a rundown. So, obviously, we're going to go more in depth on these prospects over the course of this off season in full on episodes. But let's go ahead and get to what we can now, at least the basis of it. So let's start with Logan Cooley. He is the I wouldn't say consensus, but for the most part, projected number 2. So like it would be a little more difficult, but there's still a chance that he can fall to 3 because that's happened. Again, Cooley, as we mentioned, from the U.S. National Development Team, is committed to play at the University of Minnesota next year. But let's look at some of his stats. 75 points in 51 games played with the U.S. National Development Team, and and an additional 36 in 24 in the USHL.
Yeah, that is impressive numbers for any player. Great to see. Something that I think we're going to need to think about a lot in the coming, weeks is, what is New Jersey going to do? Are they going to draft a defenseman or a forward? Because as you said, Cooley does seem like the consensus number 2 pick, but there are four forwards and a defenseman in the top 5. Could they maybe want to get a defenseman, shore up that area of their game, leaving a player like Cooley for the Coyotes?
The other thing that you have to consider is all that, and you have to look at the teams and what their basis needs. Does New Jersey need a defenseman? Do they need a forward? Yes, so that's right. And the same thing for Arizona. In the case of Arizona, I think we can all agree, Carl, that for Arizona at number 3, just pick next best available, whether it's a forward or a defenseman, just next best available, because you need centers and you need defensemen. You need it all.
You need centers, you need wings, you need defensemen, you need everything. Everything is up for grabs with the Coyotes in the rebuild. If the Devils decide to go down the route of drafting the best player, I think there's a very strong player for Cooley. But I mean, we often see teams not do the thing that we all agree is kind of the best thing that teams are supposed to do and draft the best available. So who knows? I know I would certainly just love to see him in a Coyotes jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a really interesting thing. And again, if he falls to Arizona, I would love to have him on. But here's another player that I would absolutely love to have on the Arizona Coyotes, and that is the Slovakia winger Juraj Slafkovský. This guy is I've been looking at some of his stats and everything like that. He's impressed. He's impressed, and he was part of the Slovakia team in the Olympics that got him a bronze medal. And again, at his age, that's awesome to see all the stuff that he's doing over there on that side. And again, he's from what I'm reading is he has a great hockey IQ, and he could very well become a great NHLer down the road.
Yeah, I mean, if the NHL players were allowed to participate in the Olympics, would Slovakia have placed where they did? I don't know. But the fact that he got to where he did, he got to his national team, which again, as we said, Slovakia doesn't have a lot of representation in the NHL. Few key players, but not a lot. So I think that speaks a lot to him that he got to that level. And especially when you look at things like big international competitions, they're very key in evaluating prospects for people like us. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not flying on a plane to go watch some KHL games or games in Slovakia or Europe at all. I'm not leaving the States, so we haven't gotten a chance to see him, in his normal element. But international is big.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I think the only thing that can hold him back is like um the only like he broke out in the Olympics. Like just
Yeah,
you know the rest of his performance, he played for a league in Finland, and it wasn't exactly a bright career in the games in Finland. I'm just looking at his career, 5 goals in 31 games. Like, it's not a lot. And again, a lot of people are turning to what he did at the Olympics. Is that
yeah,
enough to draft him third overall? We'll have to look more into it. And again, that's going to be part of our overall overarching like in-depth decisions. Maybe we'll bring on draft experts, prospect experts to help us understand what makes Uri Slafkovsky this high caliber, a top 4 pick.
yeah. And that is definitely a very interesting kind of move to go from relative obscurity in one league to being a highlight of an Olympic team. We've seen like players make significant jumps before when given the opportunity. Look no further than the Coyotes' own Karel Vejmelka, who went from a second, tier league to being, a big part of the Coyotes' goaltending. So I don't necessarily, I'm not afraid of a kind of player who emerged late, but it's definitely kind of an intriguing thing. But that is kind of a mark against someone. You do want to see a little bit of consistency in their
You
career.
want to you want to see like a full season out of it, right? You want to be able to get as much sample size as possible. And that was one of the problems that we had last year, right? Because we are just like, what do we
Yeah,
know about this draft? Because the sample size is so small, we don't know what's going on. Like,
yeah,
for example,
that
like let's be real. Like the Coyotes pick at when they picked number 9 overall last year, and Dylan Gunther could have well been like a top 5 pick, but we don't know because the sample size was so small because of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that is still something that, leagues are dealing with. It is not as big of an issue this past season, but it has been an issue. COVID is still affecting things. We are seeing it up until this very playoffs.
Absolutely, though. We're still going to continue. We've got a couple more prospects we want to discuss, kind of go over things, and just kind of discuss anything else about the future for the Arizona Coyotes once again, as they are set to pick 3rd overall in the upcoming NHL entry draft coming up this summer in Montreal. We're going to get to more on that in just a moment, but first, Carl has a couple words he'd like to share.
So I have a message from our friends at Built Bar. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Heck, if you're in Arizona, summer is getting very close because it's getting very hot. We're getting our first 100-degree days. And Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on any family vacation you may be going on. Just throw them in your bags, throw them in your kid's backpack. You want to make sure that everyone has a bar so they're fueled up for adventures. And the best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and they're delicious. So there's no more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both. All you need to do is go to built.com and order now. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. If you compare that to something like a candy bar, which typically has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, it's hot. You don't want to have a lot of sugar. That just is going to not feel good. So go with the Built Bar. They're not as much sugar. What I want you to do is go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
So there were two more prospects that I want to discuss, Carl. But first, I actually want to circle back to Slavkovsky for 1 second because there's one thing I almost forgot about now because I went back to his elite prospects profile and I looked at a piece of information that almost caught me to forget, and that is one of the reasons why he puts him so high. Is also his size. We talked about the Arizona Coyotes being a like a physical team, and we saw that the kind of up power forwards up in the net get do what they can kind of thing. Slavkovsky is 6'4", 218 pounds. Like
Yeah.
he's a big guy.
Yeah. I am looking at the yahoo.com kind of preview for the draft lottery. And it does mention he could graduate to the NHL this fall. So that is, I know something we mentioned before. These players are probably going to take a little bit of time to develop. He maybe not so much.
Yeah. So let's go to the other two prospects we want to do as we get ready to talk about what the future for the Arizona Coyotes. Here's the third one called I really want to discuss on because this is a defenseman because this is the only defenseman in the top 5. Obviously, the consensus number 1 defenseman available in the upcoming draft, and very well could be the pick the Arizona Coyotes take because Simon Nemec from Slovakia also again so was a pretty big part in the that Olympic team. I'm looking at his consolidated ranking on a lot of different is at number 3. So like that's exactly where would fall for the Arizona Coyotes. 6'1", 192 pounds, and as a defenseman, he's a two-way defenseman. And we're don't know the situation with the Coyotes in terms of how their defensemen are because we're going to need a lot because we don't know if we're going to be shipping off any more defensemen, if some aren't just going to come back. If you can get an offensive defenseman or two-way defenseman like Simon Nemec again, so he can play on both sides. He can be an offensive defenseman, but can also be a shutdown defenseman. That's what's huge, right? And I think that's what brings a lot of draw to this kid.
So something I want to point out real quick is there are 2 Simon Nemecs. One born February 15th, 2004. The other born January 2nd, 2004. So when you are on Elite Prospects, make sure you are looking at the right one because one is from Czechia and one is from Slovakia. We are, of course, talking about the Slovakian player. You're right. We do not know what the Coyotes are going to be doing with their defensemen. There is talk about, moving players. There's talking about, I'm sure going to be talking about acquiring players. We still don't necessarily know too much about how Soderstrom is progressing, like what he is going to be doing next year. I don't think we saw really enough to kind of make that call. So yeah, the Coyotes could look to shore up. As you've said, I do think the Coyotes need to go for the player who is best at the draft. And if he is best at the draft, go for him. Even if they don't have a spot for him, they could fit in a phenomenal defenseman.
And let's be real with the whole defenseman case. We already mentioned that there's a lot of unknowns of what's going to look like next year because add in what the injuries look like to end the year here. We want to make sure. I mean, obviously, I don't foresee someone like Nemec also going straight into the league right away. I could be wrong, but we also want to hope that somewhere down the future we don't have to grab from the Roadrunners if need be, because that's like we want to let them develop at their own pace, and coming them, bringing them up and down is I'm not a huge fan of.
Absolutely. Like I really don't know what to do with the Coyotes' defense right now because something we saw with Bill Armstrong is he does seem to like to draft older players. We saw that with J.J. Mosier, who was an overager who made his NHL debut this past season. So could that be a thing? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We definitely need to look into him a little bit more, but a curious
that's what this off season's gonna be, right? We're gonna go through in depth of let's be real about all of the top 10 picks, maybe.
I think more than that because we're gonna probably do
almost the whole first round. Let's be real. We can almost do the whole first round.
Yeah, what are the 3 picks that the Coyotes have? 3 now. We don't know what the other ones are.
We have Carolina's pick
Carolina
and
is currently unknown.
Colorado's pick.
Again, currently unknown. So we're gonna have to talk about a lot of picks this offseason.
Oh, it will be pretty in depth, But I mean, like, I'm excited for that because draft profiles are awesome. I know a lot of you guys love draft profiles, and I mean it's interesting, right? Because you're trying to get a lot of information on the on the future of the National Hockey League and seeing where a certain player is going to be and what their potential is in the NHL.
Yeah, and I do think that one of the cool things about draft profiles is they do allow for a very specialized voice that doesn't necessarily get a lot of attention during the regular NHL season. Like the players or the people who evaluate players and prospects, like the younger guys, they get a lot of attention this time of year. They have a lot of knowledge about things that we just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, we're not traveling to Europe to watch games in a very cold barn. We do not have the time nor money to do that. And hopefully we can get some people who have sat in those very cold barns.
Absolutely. At least one more prospect that I want to discuss on this show is the forward from the WHL Winnipeg Ice, Matthew Savoy. He is consensus or consolidated ranking number 4, has been put as high as number 2 on Draft Prospects Hockey, and is number 3 on a lot of other on some other positions. So again, a rough area of where the Arizona Coyotes will be picking. This guy's a true forward. I'm looking at his stats on here from his last season to Winnipeg Ice. In 65 games played, 90 points. Well over a point per game. Not to mention, he's also got 6 points in 5 games in the postseason for the CHL. So add that in there too. We have to obviously follow the pretty in depth on what the postseason is looking like in the CHL because the Memorial Cup coming up. I mean that's also very important for some of us.
Yep. Definitely a very interesting player. I looked most points by a player in the WHL. I'm seeing a player connection with Dylan Gunther, so that could be fun. I don't know if you have premium or elite prospects. I do not, but he is one of the top connections. 4 years together, so let's see that in a couple of years. But I would like to see the Coyotes get a pure forward. I'm not sure necessarily how many of those players they have looked to draft these past couple of years. I don't even know who I would necessarily compare him to in like the Coyotes' history. He certainly generates a lot of offense. You love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. But and I think that's the cool thing, right? Is to see that like no matter what, we mentioned 4 players, right? Yep. 4 players, 3 forwards and 1 defenseman. And from what we understand is none of these 4 are going to be a bad pick at all. They're all going to be really, really solid picks. And let's also be real that that some of these guys are also going to be like they're gonna have that year off to start off before they come in. And I mentioned that at the beginning, right? I mentioned at the beginning, none of these players are gonna come right out of the gates and play. Some might, again, I could that some could surprise. But for the sake of the rebuild, mine is like, what's the rush? Right? What's the rush?
Yep. And don't feel bad because we are gonna see the player take the year off, as we likely will, because even if we got Shane Wright, there would still not be a rush because it's not going to be that big of a difference. Like one player cannot drastically change a team.
No, I mean, like Does it make a big difference? Yeah, of course. Like
Yes.
Shane Wright could change a team, not overnight, but he could have been that kind of helpful. I mean, like no, not more in the sense of like Connor McDavid or like Sidney Crosby anymore. Like from a lot of the rankings I understand about Shane Wright is the fact that people equated him to a Patrice Bergeron.
Sure.
Which is obviously a really high praise because Patrice Bergeron is
Yeah.
an elite NHL player, especially during his prime. So, but I think since the season has gone, like I was like, even though I kept saying Shane for Shane and everything like that, I was less going on that idea and being like, yeah, Shane Wright would be nice, but these guys are also good.
Yeah. Like, I think there is nothing wrong for wanting to get the best player available and hoping that the odds are going to be such where you do get the best player available. Unfortunately, I don't think that the odds didn't go the Coyotes' way this time. They're still going to get a phenomenal player. If you're upset, feel free to be upset. I am drinking my whiskey. It is almost gone, so you can tell how upset I am. Uh, but yeah,
And
and
let's also briefly, I mean, kind of go on to that idea of being upset because, like, yeah, I mean, rightfully, some of you Coyotes fans are going to be upset about it because of the history of the Coyotes drafting third overall.
mhm,
Their last third overall pick was in 2015 when they picked up Dylan Strome, which obviously did not pan out for Arizona and is doing okay in Chicago.
yeah,
Um,
they
but
did get Nick Schmaltz, but
It did get Nick Schmaltz out of that trade, which obviously, so we will say that, but that's off of a trade, right? Like,
yeah,
you want to
and
be able to,
everyone is comparing Strom to Marner too.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry if you're going there.
especially that too, right? Because Marner was picked
Yeah,
later in the year, because there's a lot of things you can go down that route. And
yep.
you can be all pessimistic and be, yeah, the Coyotes are gonna make the same mistake, but let's also remember that's a whole different organization Coyotes we're talking about. We have new coach, new management, and like everything. Like so far, Bill Armstrong has made some great picks in the draft in his first official draft last year. And just made some good picks in the offseason. Let's be real. And we mentioned that at the beginning, and there's a reason why I call him Bargain Bill, because he knows
Yeah,
how to find a good deal.
and the other, I think, third overall pick wasn't Kyle Turris one,
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
which a player who also had a solid career away from the Coyotes, which does kind of seem to be a theme, but I don't necessarily think. Yep, he was third overall in 07. I don't think that this is a bad thing for the Coyotes. I can understand the frustration. I can completely, see like a season where the team was expected to be the worst. They were. They still didn't get first overall. They didn't get second overall. They fell. That sucks. Like, and I kind of agree, but there's still like great talent. This is a very deep draft. The team is going to be fine.
They will do absolutely fine. Anyways, we're out of time on this live show of Locked On Coyotes. Once again, Arizona Coyotes will pick third overall in the upcoming NHL draft later this summer. We're going to, get more into it. Again, do draft profiles all through the offseason. And as a reminder, too, don't forget, in about a little under 30 minutes, I will be hopping over to Locked On NHL, being a roundtable with a few other local hosts as I represent Locked On Coyotes to discuss Arizona's drawing there as well. So if you want a little bit more, maybe get some other perspectives as well, be sure to tune on over there. Once again, that show going to be starting in about half an hour from now. But that's it for today's episode. Hope you guys like what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave a review. Like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at Locked On Coyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. Carl Pavlik is Carl Pavlik FFH. Interact with us, ask the question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode and watching those who tuned into the live show. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.